All right, I wanted to make a quick video from one of the questions I get asked quite a bit, especially with a lot of our clientele that are newer to jiu-jitsu or maybe had an injury or coming back. Typically, what you hear out of the gate is it's conditioning. Like, I'm just gassing out. I'm so tired after rounds. I'm just getting crushed because of my conditioning. And we hear this first because clearly you haven't had a chance to establish any kind of strength or power if your conditioning's failing out of the gate. So I want to address this question and sort of how do I fix my conditioning? How do I get help with my conditioning? Because what a lot of people we see in the past is you think of aerobic conditioning as just going out and running or biking, hitting the treadmill, whatnot. And there are some improvements there. And even just simply sticking with jujitsu and just rolling. After so many weeks, you're going to begin to get better at whatever you are doing to survive. You know, that style of conditioning will get better. So it'll seem like you're getting more conditioned. But we're going to take a lot of the guesswork out of it and give you sort of a blueprint here how you could create your own training plan and figure out how to fix your conditioning. So the big thing is, sort of we talked about before, I've trained everything from Ironman athletes to tactical military athletes to football, you name it. Every different discipline or sport requires typically a different set of conditioning protocols. There's a different thing. So in American football, your defensive lineman has a different style of training for his conditioning than, say, a wide receiver. For them both to do the same style of training would make no sense. And it's the same for jiu-jitsu. So if you think, oh, I'm great at, I'm a marathon runner, that's fantastic, and you're going to have a great aerobic base. But that in and of itself is not going to make you an elite level jiu-jitsu practitioner as far as conditioning goes. Uh, and it's not also not going to optimize your overall performance. So you sort of need to change the recipe that maybe made you great at, X, Y, or Z and adjust it so that it makes so you can optimize it for jiu-jitsu and the game that you practice. So what are the ins and outs of that? What do we mean? So as we've analyzed, and this evolves as the sport evolves, as we analyze these different matches, we're seeing that you need a combination of all the above. You obviously need a good aerobic base. Now, it's not that you're going slow and low for 20, 30, 40 minutes. Most matches are 5 to 15. But that said, it's hard to build the other parts of conditioning without that foundational base. So you do need a good aerobic base. And what we think of here, and we'll talk about a bit more, is when you're building the aerobic base, you're building the volume of blood that you can pump. So oxygen-rich blood, the amount that you can pump. So think of like a bucket. Instead of a 1-gallon bucket, we're going to get a 5-gallon bucket. So our capacity to push that oxygen through the body is going to be greater. Beyond that, we're going to work to, I guess, increase the volume of buckets, I guess you could say. So a good aerobic base is something you need, and we'll talk about also how it helps you recover, and we'll usually start there. On top of that, you're going to need to create a program that will help you get a higher capacity of your aerobic system. So most people, if I put a heart rate monitor on you and we had all the devices, so we could get your anaerobic threshold and all of that, we would find that at about a certain heart rate, you switch from using oxygen to starting to use a different energy system. I'll keep it basic for now, but essentially you're going to start using something different than oxygen because you're increasing your output. And that's different for everybody. Some people, maybe around 140 beats per minute, they will switch from their aerobic system and they will go into their anaerobic lactic system and start burning a sort of a combination of fuels. That said, they're now draining energy. So imagine that you can push your oxygen or your aerobic system to 155. Your opponent, he switches at about 138. Well, if you could push the pace of the fight to where you're in the 150s, 145s, you're going to be burning fuel. So think of your fuel gauge is going down very slow, while your opponent's fuel gauge is going to be draining rapidly. That is what we're looking to do here when we talk about increasing your anaerobic lactic system. So we're going to look at methods where we can push the aerobic system to get more out of it. So we can get a higher heart rate and still just use oxygen predominantly. And then we're also going to work on the anaerobic lactic system as well. So you need that capacity because what you're going to find is a lot of people tend to wilt under pressure. And it's just sort of like, say you get stuck on bottom and you're just getting there's grinding you out where you're burning energy and they're just sort of relaxing. That's essentially what we're looking at here as far as conditioning. Then you have the last little nugget, and this is more, we'll talk about this more later on in training with our own program, but this is for those short bursts. So how powerful can you be in these 10, 12-second bursts, and how many can you do? How long can you sustain that power and have it still be like fast and strong? So out of the gate, the key, like we said, is the aerobic system. Some people come into the sport with a great aerobic base. Maybe they found it because, they just love athletics. They've got a strong, maybe cycling or running or swimming background. And the ways to know this is you can look at just basic charts, Google, resting heart rate for healthy average adult male at whatever your age is. You'll find that's a great way to sort of see what your aerobic system's looking at, like how healthy it is. Low resting heart rates or low heart rates. You could look at your HRV if that's something that you have access to. But overall, there's a number of tests that you could check your aerobic system. Out of the gate, though, we want to make sure that that's as good as we can get it. What I always say too, and I'm sure I'll touch on it later, is you don't just get your aerobic system up to a great level and then forget about it and never come back to it. All these systems and programs will sort of cycle back on themselves, and you'll always be like leveling up. So we may get your aerobic system to a certain level and then move on. And then when we come back later down the road, later that year, we're going to look to take it from where it is and go up again. So you're always wanting to get better. So know that just because we get you to a certain point and move on, doesn't mean we're done with it and you're never going to have to do, cardio again. So some of the keys here, I highly recommend investing in a heart rate chest strap. The optical sensors and the things that are on your wrist, like distal pulses, they're just not very accurate. And here, if you don't want to waste time and energy, accuracy is the key. So you need to know exactly what we're doing. Beyond that, accurate data will give you a better indication if your training is working, because then we can start looking back on data. So how you don't waste time and energy and get a good aerobic base is you focus simply on heart rate. It doesn't matter if you're running, swimming, cycling, whatever it is, we don't care. We're looking at keeping your heart rate in a very specific range for time. And what we're looking to do here is, for us, we use the Morpheus conditioning package. It has chest straps. We're looking at a number of things, an app with algorithms. So we'll know exactly what heart rate range is the conditioning zone, and it would be the green zone for us. And what we'll tell our athletes is, hey, we need you to get in this zone, which we'd probably be for most average people around 135, 140 beats per minute, and just keep it in that zone. And we would say, hey, today's cardio is going to be 40 minutes in the green zone. Get after it however you do it. What that zone is doing is, for that individual, we know that the heart at that many beats per minute is going to be completely full. It's going to fill to capacity and stretch. And over that long period of time, it's going to stretch it more and more and more, and we're going to get more volume. Same thing with vascular network, all your veins, so you're going to get more vascular. Now, if you were to not have a chest strap monitor and not monitor it and really know what you're doing, you're just running and your heart rate gets above that conditioning zone, you get to a point where your heart's beating so fast that it's actually not filling completely with blood. So you can see here you're working harder, not smarter. So this is where that technology piece comes into play, to where we can actually work probably a little bit easier and get better results. So highly recommend it. Now, when you're looking at programming your own cardio, the only variable you're really going to mess with here is the volume, because we always want that same heart rate zone. for the most part. And the method doesn't really matter if it's treadmill, pick your poison. I personally like to do 20 minutes and cycle through different things because I get bored quick. So that doesn't matter. It's just sheerly the volume. You've got one round and it's for time. You maybe start at 30 minutes, next 35, 40, and you're going to push it out. For jiu-jitsu, I typically don't take an athlete past 50, 60-minute mark because beyond that, I think we're pretty much where we need to be. Now, on that note, is a lot of people want to know, can they train strength? Can I get hypertrophy or strength training? Can I build that in? Because I heard if I do cardio, it's going to eliminate the gains. That's a deeper subject, but essentially what I like to do with athletes is I like to also work on how muscles utilize oxygen. So if I'm working for the aerobic system, I'm going to look at it more holistically. I've got this opportunity, 3 weeks here. I might as well work on muscles as well as the cardiovascular system. You can do this by adding in things like tempo method lifting. I have videos on that on the channel, so definitely look at that. But basically, you're focusing here on slow twitch muscle fibers. But yeah, you can integrate that. And there's strategies if you actually, hey, I really want to do strength training and conditioning. It's possible, but that's a whole nother story. I would pretty much stick to working on tempo method for my lifts and working the conditioning aspect by itself. Get that going, do 3 weeks of that, and then move on. And as I said, this is a foundational element, so it's a good one to start off with your very first part of your programming. Now, we've done, say, 3-4 weeks, whatever, of our conditioning. We've got your base aerobic up to where we're going to get it in that period of time. So now it's time to move on. And now we're going to start pushing that anaerobic lactic system. Again, work smarter, not harder. Get yourself a chest strap, some way to monitor it. Now what we're going to do here is if you were to look at, say, I mentioned the green zone. If you were to look at a speedometer and your green zone was between 40 and 60 miles an hour, that was the heart rate range. Well, when we're looking at pushing this new system, we want to get on the very edge, about 61, 62, 65 miles an hour. We want to be just outside that conditioning zone, and we're going to hold that zone for time. The idea here is we want to, over time, is we want to push that. We want your conditioning zone to start to creep up higher and higher. So say your max heart rate for conditioning in the aerobic phase was 145. Our goal is to push it up to maybe 150, 155. Like we want to slowly creep that up to where your conditioning zone is now higher than it was previously. And this goes to sort of the story we told before of you having the capacity to use oxygen in that system that lasts a long time at a higher level than your opponent. So it's difficult to gauge without heart rate monitors or anything like that, so I highly recommend it. I typically, with our athletes, will use threshold methods. It's the best way to go about this. And again, I have videos on the channel all about the threshold method. And what we're going to look at here is for our athletes, imagine you have your typical IBJJF tournament. We're going to look at a 5-minute tournament. We're going to train that. So we're going to train up to the 5-minute round or match. So I might start the athletes at 3 minutes of threshold. So they'll get on, say, an Aerodyne, whatever is easiest for them. And they're going to get up to that threshold level and then start the timer. And they'll go for 3 minutes. And then they'll come off of that and maybe walk or just do some light drills, things to where they can slowly recover that heart rate. And I want them to focus on that. Maybe out of the gate, we're not going to start checking heart rate recovery. We could, but I just want them to have a really good sense of like how you are recovering. Good deep breathing. Maybe you're just walking for that period of time and we want to bring your heart rate down. And then out of the gate, I'll do probably very even work to rest ratios. So I'm doing 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, and maybe we'll do 3 rounds. Those are the variables you can play with. So for the next 3 weeks, say you're training this twice a week, you could maybe increase the round time. So how much work you're doing, and then keep the same rest period. And then maybe the following week, you increase your work and maybe decrease the rest a little bit. And you can just sort of keep playing with that and figure out what works best for you. Uh, we work with our athletes sort of hand in hand and figure out what works best for them based on their recovery and heart rates and everything. But that is sort of how you're going to periodize or optimize this style of training. So at the end of these next, say, 3 to 4 weeks of this style of training, you'd want to do it probably twice a week. You're probably doing the conditioning, the aerobic, maybe 2-3 times a week. So you're doing this twice a week. We want to get your system to where we're pushing it higher. We're getting more power out of the oxygen, and then we're going to move on from there. Now this phase here, you can start integrating strength. So whereas the last system we were stretching the heart and we were increasing the vascularity and the volume of the left ventricle of the heart, now what this method is we're working on the actual thickness of the heart wall, or the ventricle wall, and we're getting it to where that muscle, it's a smooth muscle, but we can still work on it, how hard it contracts. So like I said previously, your cardio is making the bucket from 1 gallon to a 5-gallon bucket. This system here, what we're doing is we're increasing how many buckets per minute get pumped through. So imagine your opponent has done nothing that you've done so far. They haven't done any of the cardio, they haven't done any of this, they're just rolling maybe. Well, they started with that two buckets, and they're maybe getting 40 buckets a minute pumping through, where you have now increased to 5 buckets. The buckets are bigger, and you're getting more of them each minute. So you now have the ability to sort of coast through and create a method to where he is or she is burning more fuel than you at a faster rate, which is going to pay dividends in the end. Now the final method here is we're looking at optimizing your anaerobic aelactic system. Think of this as short bursts of power. So passing, retaining, guards, submissions, takedown defenses, things where you're getting up to a maximum output and only can sustain it for about 10 to 12 seconds. This is what we're working here. So the first system, your aerobic system, which I just call conditioning, that is going to be your foundation. Excuse me, and we build that out of the gate. On top of that foundation, we start working thresholds, which is what we just described, and that's your anaerobic lactic system. During that system, you can do strength training, you can work hypertrophy, a lot of things we can do there. And that's probably one of your longer systems. As we get closer to, say, tournaments, or we start looking at peaking, we're going to start working lighter in the gym as far as weights, and we're going to start getting more powerful and working on speed. While we do this, it's a fantastic time to integrate methods that work on this system. The one that we like to use most often is a cardiac power interval. And again, there's videos on our site with this. And this is where we're working at max intensity for short periods of time. So we're working on bursts. We're getting the athlete to their max heart rate, sustaining it for a period of time, and then focusing on relaxing. Now, if you hadn't focused on heart rate recovery previously, if you have a coach or you're capable of doing this on your own, I really want to focus on heart rate recovery and recovering in general. So what we do here is, just like thresholds, you have the same variables that you can periodize, is we're going to go for maybe like 10 seconds max. Then we're going to give you, say, a minute off. We're going to give you 3 minutes off. So what you're going to do is you're going to do 10 seconds as hard as you can. This guy's on the VersaClimber. So get to max heart rate, keep it there for 10 seconds. Then you're going to come off. You're going to get into a recovery position. So hands on knees, rounded back, deep breathing. And as your coach, I'm going to see what your max heart rate was. I'm going to note it. Then after 60 seconds, I'm going to note what that heart rate is. So say you went up from 175 down to 130. That's a heart rate recovery of 45 beats per minute. That is going to be the number we use to see if we're getting better. The more, the better. And what we're doing there is we're recovering faster than our opponents. and that's our goal. We want to increase the power in our output and what we can do in this method, but also how fast we recover and not waste energy and not waste that fuel. So this is extremely intense. If you're like, oh, that sounds fun, but I haven't done the other two at all, I would rewind and focus on those, build those up, and then work on this. This can be overwhelming, especially if you're training hard and have a lot of things going on. It's a very big stressor. Anytime you're working the max heart rate range, you always want to use caution. The variables here, I would start liking this to how I'm going to compete. So know how many bursts per minute or how much you're going to expect in that match, how much rest, those are all your variables you're going to play around with. Focus on heart rate recovery, and then these drills, obviously there's a VersaClimber pictured, but this could be any kind of specific jiu-jitsu drill as well. So if you're drilling something specifically with a partner, as long as you can get your heart rate to the max, that is the key. You can also use things like med ball slams, sprints, all kinds of stuff you can do here. So a ton of information. I tried to keep it as basic as possible. But what I would say is if you're struggling with conditioning in jiu-jitsu, you're gassing out, whatnot, and you want to fix that on your own. What you want to do is create 3-week blocks. So the first 3 weeks, I want you to focus on just your aerobic base. So here what you're going to do is you're like 3 weeks, maybe you're going to train twice a week. That's 6 sessions. Start at 40 minutes. Go back to like, how do I monitor that? Well, all the details, and periodize that up to about 50 to 60 minutes after the 3rd week. So pretty easy to do. 40, 45 minutes, 50, 55 minutes, 60, and then just do that. Roll like normal, do everything like normal. Maybe don't even hit the gym. Just get the condition up there. The next 3 weeks, you're going to focus on thresholds. Check out the videos we have for the threshold method. That'll detail it in depth. You're going to simply do the same thing. Look at that, periodize that over 3 weeks. Perfect. Add some weight training. So maybe do that twice a week. Add 2-3 days of weight training in on that. Just start to really beef it up a little bit here. And then your final 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to work on your power. And so go back, maybe look at our video on cardiac power intervals, integrate that in maybe 2 times a week into your normal sparring and training. And I guarantee you after those 9 weeks, you are going to have a much higher level of output and conditioning than you could even imagine. And it probably won't be as hard as you thought it was. So hopefully that helped out. If you're interested in more and wanting someone to coach you and put you through this and give you the tools to do it optimized at a very high level, check us out at neobjj.com or email me and I will help you as much as I can. And my email is Corey, Cory, @duffyperformance.com. All right, thanks, and I will see you soon.